I'm in Colorado. So, good afternoon, evening, wherever you are. This is Brian Shannon from Alpha Trends speaking. Today, it's my pleasure to have Michael Noss from Trade Ideas on here. And what the subject matter for today is building intraday scans. And I've asked Michael to go. Michael's kind of the expert at really understanding some of the intraday market dynamics over there at Trade Ideas and building the filters out. He's kind of the go-to guy, I think, that, as far as if you're trying to create something. And I hope I'm not putting more work on your plate that you're not looking for by saying that, Michael. I'm simply giving you a compliment. Anyways, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about building a filter from scratch. Michael's going to talk about the Holly. I don't know if you guys are familiar with what Holly is, the AI that Michael has built a number of the algorithms that drive that. So, Michael, I am not going to give a long intro and waste people's time. Let's get right down to it, and I will hand the controls to you.
Okay. Can everyone see my screen okay?
I can,
Yes, I
yes.
should open questions and chat there. There we go. Yeah, so just a quick, I won't try to bore you with my whole life story, but I've been trading for 12, 13 years now. I've been using trade ideas for almost as long. Started, back in the prop shop days where you'd use trade ideas just to find big bids and big offers back when, level 2 was important and you could read things off of that. And then ever since that, I've worked in the hedge fund space and many different jobs from there. And I've always kind of had trade ideas as a tool to speed up my trading while I was doing other things, or to find stocks that I normally wouldn't look at, or things like that. So what I've kind of done from there is I spent a lot of time on the backtesting module, and that's what we're going to talk about quite a bit today, where you can come up with an idea and a trading plan and backtest that, and either use that as a kind of augmented tool where you look at your backtested scans and try to say, okay, I'm not just going to take everything blindly. I'm going to take what this statistical edge gives me, and then from there, I'm going to use my eye, which is a lot of what I do, or people who just want to rely entirely on the statistics and just kind of follow that. And that's where our AI comes in, where it essentially, and I'll get more into this, but it auto optimizes every night, many different scans. But first, we'll kind of get into the basics, and a scan that I've actually been working on quite a bit. And I posted something on Twitter today, which just showed the way that I start my intraday scans. And it's just a picture of the whiteboard I have behind me in my office, where I'm a visual guy, like I know a lot of you guys would be as Brian's followers. So I like to draw out the patterns that I see in the market over and over again. And when I have a pretty good idea of what it is I want to look at, that's when a tool like Trade Ideas comes in. And this is something I'm taking my CMT that they talk about heavily in the CMT, where you use these kind of backtesting tools for confirmation, but not discovery. So that's something I want to kind of get through to you guys, that what I'm going to show you is going to look like it's going to be, an insanely powerful tool, and it is, but it's very easy to get kind of lost in the tool and to use it as a way to generate ideas as opposed to prove kind of what ideas that you have. So everything starts with your trading style and your ideas and what it is that you want to come across. So today, for example, we're going to use a strategy that I've been playing with. I'm going to start paper trading it. This is Trade Ideas Paper Trader module up here. But so the steps are to backtest, which I'll show you, and then you can load it into the paper trader and see how it goes from there. So essentially what I'm looking for here is, my theory of it was, if a kind of a break of a high volume play on one VWAP works well, and it's something that I've played with for a long time, to go for, what Brian Shannon does a lot with the multiple day VWAPs, is something that could be very, very powerful. And I think, Brian, I know you've talked to Kenny Glick before, and this is kind of his whole shtick, right? This is what he does, is he does the 2-day VWAP and for day trades over and over again. So
Did you see the S&P 500 come down to the 2-day VWAP today? Just amazing. I mean,
I did.
within 3 cents, I think, and then bounced to, 60, 70 cents. I don't remember the numbers, but yeah, it's amazingly powerful at times.
Yeah, so my theory was if one VWAP's good, maybe two VWAPs are better. So, your idea can start as something as simple as that, right? But then what you want to do is you want to take the time and build up the idea and see if it's something that it makes sense, and then use the back tester to say, okay, is it worth my time adding this to my screen or watching this? We all have very limited mental bandwidth when it comes to day trading or even short-term swing trading. So we need to make sure that what we're focusing on is, the thing that's going to give us the most value. And trade ideas, you can have tons and tons of scans going all the time, and I see that a lot with our traders, that they get a little bit lost. So this is kind of what I'm going to talk about, is using the back tester to make sure that what you're looking at, A, makes sense for you, and B, has that edge, so you're not just kind of floating all over the place. So that's basically the theory. Is I'll bring up essentially how that works, but without boring you guys with the details, we essentially have two kinds of scans. One is like this, which is a top list, which, think of this as kind of like an Excel spreadsheet where you can sort the market by anything that you'd like, things that are close to VWAP or close to a 200-day moving average, or the biggest ranges today, or the best movers today, or the highest volume, or whatever. But it's a static point in time of these are the top things here. So this is basically a simple scan that I have of stocks that have moved dramatically recently and had an inside day today. And it's just a way that I find stocks that may have some continuation in the future. But this is your top list, and this is great for scanning the market kind of after hours, which is what I use these for. But don't really hit you kind of when an alert happens. It's just a basic, again, Excel spreadsheet. Now here is an alert window. And the difference between this is it takes all of the same criteria that you could build into that top list window and says, but only show me the stock if an event occurs, right? So this one is built up, and I'll show you the settings behind it. And you can apply, and I won't get in, again, all the details, but everything that you see here, you can add and remove and customize, and then you can build out your own if you really want to get into it. So a very powerful program, but we're going to start pretty simply, where everything's set up in kind of this min-max fashion, right? So the main kind of crux behind the scan is that I want the distance from the 2-day VWAP to be over the 2-day VWAP, so I have a minimum of 0, and not too far above it, so we're talking 0.5%. Same with the 1-day VWAP, because again, the theory behind this scan is simply if one VWAP is good, maybe two VWAPs are better. Maybe when they're very close together and we get a movement off them, maybe there's a statistical edge there. So other than that, I changed from the open. I want it to be positive, and you can see how everything's kind of min-max here. I'm cutting off the trades that don't meet these specific criterias. You can visually see that in our histogram here, where this one particular filter is relative volume. So it's just how much volume is the stock doing today versus how much does it normally do at this time during the day. So a relative volume of 1.5 would just mean it's doing about 150% its normal volume. So something's going on, people are interested in some way. And from there, you can see if I move this further, I'm cutting off more and more test results and narrowing down the amount of scans or the amount of symbols in which I'll see.
Michael, can I interject there and ask a question? That shows
Sure.
the average 1.5 times what it normally does at this time of day is important for people to recognize. And is that based on a 20-day average, 10-day average, or what is that average?
Yep, 20-day historical average based off of 1-minute bars. So, if it's noon Eastern now, it's saying, okay, what has this particular stock done on noon Eastern the last 20 days? And then averages that out, kind of compares those those numbers.
Right. Cool.
So that is very important because a lot of people will say, okay, volume percentage, but then we don't know, at what point of the day is it going to matter? So, and this is a way that, again, I can go from that whiteboard behind me where I wrote down all of the theory I add here into a system like this where I translate words that I wrote down on the whiteboard of has to be interesting. And then, so what does that mean mathematically? Well, has to be interesting usually means news, and news 99.9% always accompanies volume. So your average kind of run-of-the-mill junk, quote unquote, stocks that are kicking around. Other than that, it's pretty much kind of open. I don't like to trade after noon myself for intraday, so I have it cutting off and saying don't look at anything at noon. So it's going to take the whole universe of the 10,000 or so stocks that you can trade, and it's going to say, okay, I'm only going to look at stocks that have these criteria. They're very close to VWAP 1, they're very close to VWAP 2, which is, for us, we just mean the current day's VWAP and the 2-day VWAP, over a certain amount of volume. So again, we're just filtering out that universe of stocks. And then we're saying, I only want to see the stock if something occurs with all of those filters in place. So that something in this scenario is a cross above resistance. So how Trade Ideas classifies resistance is just a point that it's been touched, multiple times, but not violated. You can define how long you want that range to be. I just left it kind of blank at this stage of things. So from there, we get it's all that's required, and we get a scan that's going to tell us stocks that are close to the 1-day and the 2-day VWAP, which I'm going to make this intraday chart a little bigger for you guys, I think. And here we go. And is breaking resistance. So if we take our anchored VWAP tool, which Steve showed you guys, and we put that on, we're going to see when it triggered in this candle, it was pretty much right between the 1 and 2-day VWAP, which is great. That's kind of what we want to see. But now we've built what I've had on a whiteboard and envisioned in my head into the system, and that's great, and that's a good first step. Now, if you have a system and something that you like to trade, you're pretty much done at this point, where you have your thing and you're going to watch it. You can have it yell at you whenever something happens, and that, for a lot of people alone, can streamline their trading. They're no longer searching for what to trade. They're just waiting for a trade to be given. And for me, that was huge, because I started to trade, in the prop days where I'd do 250, 300 trades a day like a madman. So to calm myself down when I came over to back to trading after a hiatus working in hedge funds and realized that kind of trading just didn't fly anymore, I needed something to say, okay, don't do anything until this thing tells you to do something. But what if you don't know whether or not your system's good? Because my process of trading is coming up with an idea, listening to YouTube videos, which, again, I guess quickly talk about, I have been following Brian Shannon on YouTube for, I don't know, probably over 10 years now, I would say. And my old man wanted to get into trading as well, and I sent him your video, and that was 5 or 6 years ago, and he's been watching it. So if you're someone like Brian, you've got a system, that's great. If you're someone like me who likes to employ multiple systems and wants to improve on them, this is a good way to do it, where you have your initial idea, and then what you can do is run it through our back tester. So you can take any strategy out there, and you can ask the system, if, for example, every trade that came through here today, so let me show you all the trades that came through, it's going to take the first instance of each of these alerts, start it with DHR here, and it's going to take the first instance of each of these alerts, and then I can ask the system, okay, if I bought these with all of these parameters in place, how long to hold, what my stop loss is, what my target is, all of this, then what would it have done and what would my return have been over the last few months, and it goes back in this top list, and it will run this up to 10,000 times for you, just to see what you would have made or what you would have lost on that trade. So let me just show you how to do that real quick. But again, this is the way to confirm whether or not that idea you came up with is worthwhile watching or something to abandon entirely. So I said on this one, my time zone's a bit weird. The market opens at 10:30 for me and closes at 5. So I set out the first half hour for all my day trades. It's just personal preference. I think you can get whipsawed a lot. And then I stop my day trades at 1, which is noon Eastern. So I can program that in. But you can say if you want to trade, the happy hour or the last hour, you can do that. You can decide all of this. Timed exit, when do you want to exit? Do you want to hold the trade? Are you a really short-term trader and you want to find something that has edge over a 15 or 30-minute horizon? Or do you want something that you're going to open up at the beginning of the day or close at the end? Or you can even do this for swing trading as well. You can go to optimize based off of up to, I think, a 30 or 40 day, or let's just see, 62-day hold. So depending on your time frame, right, this is where you would adjust that. For this example, we're going to use that we're going to close just 15 minutes before the end of the day. So regardless of when it opens, this test is going to say kind of close it at the end of the day. Risk management, we're going to leave this blank for now. And this is just a step that I do where instead of going right into what they call a back test, I do a signal test. So what we're testing for right now is just to say, is the price of this stock higher or lower than when my entry is at the end of the day, ignoring all stops and risk management, but we'll look at that in a second. How long we want to back test for, how long is some advanced things that you could do here. You could say, for example, what happens if I held these stocks until it broke a 20 period, 15-minute SMA, whatever you can think of here for advanced exits you can do, but we'll keep that simple. And then just a nice summary tab. It just tells you kind of everything you need to know here. So when I click buy, it's going to then go through and it's going to run these last however many days, 64 days, and just say, okay, so you would have bought here, you would have sold here, this is what you would have made, this is what you would have lost. If you want to see each individual trade, you can actually open it up and it will highlight on our charts for you where the entry would have been, which is this blue line right here. So in this case, this ZTS, it would have purchased you right in here, and then it would have closed you out. These are 15-minute charts, so 15 minutes before the end of the day, kind of in this area here. So that's all given for you, which is great. So you can go back and say, okay, is my scan producing symbols that I expected it to? And how roughly is the performance? So we can see that with this scan, there's a 55% chance the stock closes higher than our entry. Our risk reward's not too great, and that all information is up here. So total trades, we have 55% winners, gives you your average and winner loser, which isn't that good. The strategy return on trading $100,000 worth of equity and 500 shares. And then here is where you can add in your commission rate and slippage, right? So if we missed a bunch in and missed a bunch out, you can see the kind of dramatic effect that has on this narrow win rate strategy with many trades. You start taking commissions and slippage in, it quickly goes from a good one to a bad one, which is, I guess, a lesson for everyone. Now, from here, we can take a look and we can say, how many trades am I doing a day? Well, I'm doing, say, between 20 and 40 trades a day. And then this is a histogram for each of these back tested days, saying here's the days that we've done great, and here's the days that we've done poorly, and kind of the distribution of each. Now, the cool part of all of this, we'll skip right to, is the ability to optimize. So here, optimization is basically saying, this is the theory that I've come up with from the whiteboard to trade ideas and then run the signal test on. and saying, okay, well, now it's time to ask what ifs. In what situation does this work best? So, for example, let's just go take a look. We can just say the 120-minute range, just to pull something at random. And what it's going to do is it's going to sort all of the data by how much the 120-minute range was before entry and exit. And from there, you can do that with, again, all of these different scans, all of these different filters. You can say, what about the Bollinger Bands, right? What about the 9-month range? How close do I want it to be to earnings? You can even put in fundamental filters if you want to do that, if you're more of a long-term trader. And what you're going to do is you're going to end up filtering out when your strategy works and when your strategy doesn't work. Let me just try to find something that will affect that. So yeah, for example, so position in 10-day range basically just says, where are we in the 10-day range? You can see if we're kind of in the lower end of the 10-day range and we color code all this, things don't work nearly as well for this one than if we're in the higher part of the 10-day range. So from here, you can just go through and you can say, okay, we know that there is some statistical edge to this thing that I came up with. 55%, not an insane amount, but on its face alone, without playing with it at all, it does seem that if you take stocks that are close to, the two VWAPs are close and the stock is close to that, and it starts to break away from those, that there is some statistical edge to buying those and holding them for the day. Again, 55%. If we had a pretty good risk reward on that, that would be great. So again, without going through and boring you with the entire process, you can go through this list and try to see how these different codes would affect you. For here, for example, in our 5-minute Bollinger Bands, it's probably better to be in the top kind of range of them than the bottom, which again just means the stock has been kind of strong recently. So from there we can go and we can take that, and I feel like the cooking show guy that I've actually already cooked the food for you and just pulling it out under the table. And this is what I was able to build by filtering down these all of these scans into something that's a little bit more manageable. So I'll show you what I ended up adding in based off what the backtester told me to add in. And it's not very much, to be honest. So I made sure the daily RSI wasn't really high, basically just meaning it's not super extended on the daily chart, and that the change in post market was positive in some way, right? So that it didn't sell off after hours and then I'm buying it the next day. Those are the two things that ended up having kind of the most impact on this particular scan. So then I can go through here and I can run this back test and actually get something that I'm interested in watching or paper trading. So we never go right from here to risking real money. We'll put this into a paper trader and see if it holds for the next little bit. But I get something. We can get on. And then this is all going to be a lead up to kind of my brief explanation of Holly, because this is what Holly does like a few million times every single night. So now we have something that looks a little bit better. We only upped the win rate a little bit, but we ended up increasing our average win-loss, just knowing everything we know about risk management. You can be right 35% of the time and make really good money. And now we've got something that's a little bit more manageable. It's a little more interesting. It's not 1,000 trades, it's 200 trades, and it's actually got a pretty bigger edge. So if we add in things like slippage and commissions, everything doesn't fall apart immediately. So again, so now we've gone from, and this is again why I love this software, is we've gone from an idea I had in my head and I wrote down on the whiteboard behind me into the software where I was able to come up with something to show them to me. Then I was able to test them and figure out in what scenarios do they really work best. And now I can start to build a trading plan around them. So I can go back to this risk management tab and say, oh, I already put it, but say if I put my stop at the low of the day on all of these, what would happen? And this is the equity curve we end up getting. If I wanted to go with a wider stop, I'm sure what I'm going to get is more winners, but less of a good win-loss ratio. So, right, so again, from the idea all the way here to something that I can have a trading plan, the more advanced thing down the road is I could plug this into the system and have it auto trade it. I could then just tell the system, I would like you to trade this tomorrow, either in sim or in a live interactive brokers account, and just, go from there. But the thing is, kind of the crux of all this is any strategy that you build is going to work well sometimes, and it's going to work poorly other times. If you build a trend following algo in high range markets where there's a direction, that's going to work great. And then in sideways choppy markets, it's not going to work as well. So that led us to saying, okay, we understand, we'll build an algo like this and we'll run it for a while and it does great. And then we'll go back to the drawing board when it doesn't work and build another one. And again, this is how I trade, but some people don't have the time or the inclination to do that. So we ended up then building our AI. And essentially what the AI is it's taken a bunch of algos that were built by myself. Some of the other traders gave ideas for them, and then I built them in, and the same kind of base process where it was, again, from the whiteboard to that initial scan that you've seen. And then we built something that said, okay, we're going to build, I believe we're up to 70 some odd right now, and say each day, I want you to go and do that same kind of backtesting optimization type of thing that I just ran, but I want you to do it 1,000,000 times under different combinations and permutations and with some more advanced tools, which is mainly out of sample data testing. There's probably one guy who remembers all that kind of stuff from statistics class, but just more advanced backtesting type of systems and theories. And what it's going to do is it's from those 70 algos, it's going to give you the top handful that we have working today. We call it the quantitative combine, where what we found is that the more you have to mess with a strategy, the worse that it is in reality. So it will give a couple, 100 tries at something. If it can't find a combination that works, that one doesn't make it today, we'll revisit it tomorrow. And at the end of the day, this is more or less, let me get up the other window here. This is more or less what the user, do I actually have? Oh, I do. More or less what the user sees is just a window like this that shows here's all the different strategies with all the cutesy names we put on them, like Nickelback and strong stock pulling back and little big guy, where these are those base strategies, the basic idea, like right, if one VWAP's good, two VWAP's better. And then from there, we let the system optimize it down with some instructions of what to look for and what not to look for. And then what it will do is it will record the trading all day, add that to its knowledge base, and then go back at it tomorrow with that increased set of data. So every day it's learning and it's growing and it's trying to figure out in which markets, which different strategies work best. And then from there, so the end result is what you see is it giving you a strategy. You can click on the chart. You can see it shorted UA here. Let's find something that actually moved a little bit. Okay, so GT, Goodyear Tire, reported earnings this morning. And you can see it gives you an entry point with this blue line and an exit point with that stop loss that we built in on the last step there. And it says this is what I think is a reasonable stop loss for this stock and this strategy. And then it employs some kind of trailing stop risk metrics where it says, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to trade this, and you can see where this kind of faded area stops. That's where it kind of said to get out of the trade. So it'd be kind of in this area, and it's simply just say, okay, we've had a good push down, and now it looks like we're bouncing up, and we may be failing from that. So the main kind of crux of it, and you can have this traded automatically for you My suggestion, however, is more of this is a way that you can apply statistics to how it is that you already trade and how you already done. I'm still a believer that it's it's still that man and machine balance, right? So you can see when you load up your thing in the morning what the statistics on all of the overnight runs were. And you can pick which one of those are interesting to you. And then as the trade comes through, you can click on it on the chart. You can see if it matches your trading style. And if it does, right, you know you have that statistical bump. So I guess that's like I hope I didn't go too fast or too slow, but that's like a 3,000-foot view of how you can take an idea and build it into something that, you know, kind of gives you the whole trade instructions from soup to nuts.
That was great, Michael. Let's see if there's any questions here. One thing, can you show people how you came up with your active stock list, for instance, if they wanted to replicate that, the ones that, have been in play, where where you're beginning your filter from?
Oh, sure. These guys.
Yes.
So what I actually do, and this is kind of a weird trading style for me, and I guess you guys can see the whole Chrome window so you can see what you can do, is I like to pick the stocks myself and then I put them into a list and then I let the robot trade them for me. So I don't know which of these I will enter tomorrow, if any, but they're just kind of things that I'm telling the system to watch for, you know, certain things. Don't trade in the first half hour or so. But for this one, essentially what I did is I just wanted um, a big change in the last 5 days. So shrink this down. So in the last 5 days, it has to be up over 3% for the long one and down over 3% for the other one. These are customs, but if you email me in, I can build them for you. And it's basically just looking for an inside day. So it's saying, you know, today's a high has to be lower than yesterday's high, and today's low has to be higher than yesterday's low. And then from there, and you can see how simple, you know, this particular scan is.
Right.
I just sorted it by relative volume. So everything with a high relative volume is on top. And then what I do each night, it's, you know, this is a strategy that I use that I haven't really back tested, but I've been doing for years. But it's essentially a third day play, right? Where you're looking for the first strong push. And then, you know, the second day, you kind of want a little bit of a sideways chop. And then the third day, you're hoping for a breakout continuation with a stop just right under yesterday's low.
Got it. Okay. Dame is asking what kind of win rate do you typically look for? What's most important to you when you're back testing?
For me, let me bring this back up. I don't really focus on win rate. So the stats have been done on a lot of all of this already. And I don't know if they changed the CMT since you took it, Brian, but I'm doing level 3 now and it's heavily statistics. I'm like halfway through and it's all statistics based, which
Really?
I like, but I could see a lot of people going crazy on. And what they talk about there is a myriad of studies that have been done on both trend following and revision to the mean strategies. And they find that if you're in the 45% win rate in a very kind of systematic trend following strategy, you're doing amazing. You know, I would argue that somebody who took a strategy and applied a trader's eye to them could bump that up a bit, but it really depends. Things like hold time, how wide your stop is. You know, the longer you hold, the less your win rate, but the more money you can make when you're right. And the tighter your stop, the less your win rate, the more money you can make if you're right. But what I focus on is this number called profit factor, which is right here. So for this one, it is 2.47. And profit factor is simply the sum of your winners over the sum of your losers. So if all of your winners, you took them all, added them all up, and you made $250, and then you took all of the losers and you sum them up and you lost $100, that would be a 2.5 profit factor. For me, that's more of an important number because it includes both your total trades or your total win rate and then your average win-loss. It kind of combines the two into a number because if you have both, you're fantastic. If you're really good on one side, then you're still okay. So that's where I focus anyway. Last kind of thing about that is that's really all on your personality too. I know a guy who has a 32% win rate and is just a way more profitable trader than I am. I couldn't personally do that. I just can't. He'll come in and because his stops are so tight, he'll come in and lose a bit, lose a bit, lose a bit, lose a bit, and then the next day he'll have 4 or 5 days in a row where he loses money, and then his strategy actually hits a winner or two, and it's made it all back in some. If you can stay disciplined through that process, then you can ignore win rate almost entirely. If you're the kind of person where you think you're going to jump ship a little early, or you have a problem with really tight stops and the discipline to take them, then you might want to focus a little more on win rate. So personality driven.
I think that's a great point. Steve and I spoke about that a little bit last week as well. Is that this is a starting point and a way to marry what as a trader with technology, and not to just blindly take the signals, because sometimes there's going to be one you like a little bit better. But some people might say, "Hey, I'm going to take all my signals because I'm the weak link here." Versus you saying, applying a trader's eye, you think you can do better than that 45%. So there's, the great thing about this trial that you're taking right now, I think, is that it exposes you to so much more and allows you to put some real rules and with the odds tester, statistics behind your trading to really say, here's what's working, here's what's not working, where do I improve, and how do I make this all fit for my personality, not just blindly following someone on Twitter or a subscription service. But, even at Alpha Trends, I tell people all the time, I'm not here to tell anyone what to do. I'm here to give you guidance and show you reasons for trades. And if you agree with it, then you make it your own. Maybe you enter before the breakout. Maybe you enter a half hour after. There's so many different ways to the finish line here. But being able to marry that technology to make yourself more efficient is something that, again, that's one of my goals for 2020.
Well, and it's the beauty of that, and then there's also kind of this unquantifiable thing that I really found myself when I started playing with the software, and that was just the number of reps. So this initial scan we went through had 1,000 trades in it. So I'm able to look at the outcome of 1,000 scenarios and see which of my filters would affect it, how, if I changed my stop, would it affect it, which applies for more than just this particular scan. So it's kind of terrifying, but I looked at my numbers before this. I've run knocking on the door of near 100,000 back tests. So clicking that button that you saw in my life of this. So if each one of those contained 1,000 trades, I have just so many more reps than somebody who sits down every day, makes 2 or 3 trades, puts it in a journal, and then reviews that later, which is, still something you should do. But there's a rep of this. And this is why one of those things, I wasn't a huge VWAP guy until we started to get these in the system. And then I could start to say, okay, how do these affect existing trades that we already have, and how do they affect new setups and all of this? And very quickly I can go through and I can see from thousands and thousands and thousands of repetitions a night how different indicators or state of the stock or how fresh the news is, how all of these things connect it. And I can't really quantify a benefit of that to you, except the fact that I think it just kind of accelerates what you would do with trading and then journaling every night. I think there's just a bit of a shortened learning curve that happens there.
Yeah, I mean, we all go through our phase of, hey, I read about this indicator or oscillator. I'm going to add that to my charts and start seeing what it looks like, and then interpreting it in different market conditions and not understanding what the real value is, versus saying, okay, here we go, we can test it. This is what it does, and change the parameters of how you use it. Rather than spending those 10,000 hours in front of the machine, it gets it down to, okay, now I can cull it down to the end of the day and start looking at a few of these and really hone in on that system.
Right, and you get to see another cool way of doing this that I like is like a BS detector. So I travel fair amount for trade ideas. You know, we go to different conferences, and I just got back from Orlando the other day, and New York next month, and all of this. And so I get to meet and talk to a lot of traders, and everyone has a system or a style or a niche. And it becomes a very good way, what you were talking about, instead of just blindly following a chat room or an indicator, I can go back and I can sit down at my screen and say, okay, this guy said if you buy things that fall to the 200-day moving average, you'll make a bunch of money. And I can test that. And I can see, okay, does it make sense? You know, not saying whether or not the guy's malicious or not, but is it something that I can quantify? And if it is, well, then it may be something that I'll want to devote my time to watching. And if I can't quantify it at all and it seems like a horrible strategy, well, then that's just something that I don't want to watch. Because again, it comes back to that we have limited bandwidth throughout the day. So we got to make sure whatever it is we're spending it on is going to be something that makes us money in the long run.
Awesome. Well said. Any other questions here, or we'll wrap it up and get it processed and put it out to the Twitter world? Well, I don't see any other questions. Thanks so much for taking your time, Michael. It's been instructive for me as well. And anytime I hear you guys, it makes me want to, continue to delve further into the back testing and screening. So thanks for your time again. And don't forget, everybody, that these guys are there every single day at Trade Ideas for the rest of this week from noon to 2 p.m., giving live feedback about how to use the software, because there's so much to it. And make sure you give it a full honest look. Thanks,
Yeah,
Michael.
thanks for having me.
Okay, take care, everybody.
Bye bye.
Bye.